used around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised.
Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Thank you, John Larson. I receive your kind words on behalf of all of our courageous members of the House of Representatives who want the best for the American people. And what we can do that is best for them in the next 24 hours is to pass affordable, accessible health care for all Americans. The best for all Americans is to have 32 million more people to have health insurance in our country. The best for...
Piece of stinking filth.
Shh, say it again, Shal. This is AJ of the InfoWars. Listen to the Shaliak. This is Alex Jones of InfoWars. Listen to Shaliak on the Cold Reality News and Report.
This is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
Well, hello there.
safe as I gaze at the bright stars above. And every day, just know that I'm wishing you nothing but freedom and love. Don't say whatever it is they get you to say. But at the end of the day, there ain't no way, no way, no way. Not to say whatever it is they get you to say. But at the end of the day, there ain't no way they can take I listen to Zeta, Elijah, and Carver. Every day, I'm starkly reminded of people are so dearly missed. Every day, I know you've been told how it goes as below so above. Every day, as long as I'm breathing, I cherish my freedom and love. I got no time for illegal wars, talking points and corporate whores. Taxman come and break my balls. Bankers making their own laws. The message is free. Beware of the slick talking hawk that is dressed like a dove. If you're questioning me, you can only know peace when you're reaching for freedom and love. Don't say whatever it is they get you to say. But at the end of the day, there ain't no way they can take it away. Let them say whatever it is they get you to say. But at the end of the day, there ain't no way they can take it away. Let them say whatever it is they get you to say. But at the end of the day, there ain't no way they can take it away. Let them say whatever it is they get you to say. But at the end of the day, there ain't no way they can take it away. This goes out to
Today on Cold Reality Radio. Trump orders release of the JFK files. My guest today, who is just completely involved in that, and I just had no idea how karmically it was going to happen today, but I just said, hey, why don't you be on the show today? And it turns out that he is like an expert at this. So we're going to have a conversation about this and what does it mean? Why now? Why now? Why now does Trump want to release them? It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Maxine Waters promises to go and take out Trump, man. She's going to dress in her fucking ninja retard suit and she's going to go take him out. She's going to take him out for a nice sushi and sake. Snoop Dogg targets as hip-hop onslaught continues. Weinstein's former chauffeur reveals all. Guess he tried to rape him too.
how Harvey used his fashion business as a pipeline to the models. I'm Harvey. Aren't I sexy? Don't you want me? Let me get on the runway. He's too sexy for his face, too sexy for disgrace. Documents reveal active U.S. support of Indonesian mass killings in the 1960s. Google to build world's first digital utopia with parks in sky and artificial intelligence weather. The legacy of Reagan's civilian psyops. And of course, Trump to make all JFK assassination files available to the public after they've been heavily redacted, I am sure. And we're going to talk to Chuck Ochelli today about this very topic. How is everyone out there in Nightmerica and the rest of the world? Because I'm sure that UCY reaches the Russian beaches, the beaches of Sochi, and all over this plain tea. Plain tea. All right, so I mean, I guess you could say, you know, we definitely have this continuity of agenda that's moving through the system. It's like, I think they do this collectively. You know, when Reagan was the president in Nightmerica here, he also had Margaret Thatcher pushing some of the same elements of government, the same ideologies. You know, Reaganomics, she was pushing the same thing. It's an absolute continuity of agenda across the board. Things are run pretty much the same way. Of course, America is a what did Greg call it? A cove. What was that he called it? A cove of just a place, a point of reference in the world where everything can be looted. A pirate cove. That's it. A pirate cove. America has always been a pirate cove. It was built to enable these families that rule and dominate over everyone financially, in every way, shape, and form. And that's what World War I was, World War II was, to put everything into into order, into their order. I mean, we've had world government for, forever now, and which makes Alex Jones and his claims just completely irrelevant. I mean, and who's going to tell him? Most of his people are jumping ship because they don't, they believed in him, and now they don't believe in him because he's riding Trump's little red wagon into just stalemate, stagnation, because the left hates him and the right hates him. And if for some strange reason this tax reform is passed, it's not going to do shit for anyone. It is not going to do a damn bit of good for anyone. Is that the low cut there? I'll make sure I got the right levels when we get Chuck in here to talk about this JFK. I saw he messaged me. We message each other every now and then. I'm rebroadcasting. He's rebroadcasting Cole Reality over there on Ochelli.com. And and he was, just kind of blurbing to me, and then I'm like, hey, do you want to, get on Cold Reality this morning and have a conversation? And I'm like, oh my God, this is the perfect time to have him on. OMG, lol, laugh out lol, So, again, the perfect time to have Chuck Ochelli on, because he has been doing this for, forever. He's been doing this forever and ever and evers. So we're going to get him in there. I'm going to message him, make sure he's good to go. Make sure that he is good to go. All right. Okay. Let's get. I think it's adding in, right? There it is. Burnt. Right. Chuck, do we have you? Hello. Can you hear me?
Ah, there we are.
Okay, good. Good. Let me make sure that your levels are good here so we can hear you.
Excellent. Hope it's all right. Am I too loud?
I'm probably my bass is probably too loud. It's all about the bass.
Yeah, well, you gotta get with the bass.
Okay. All right. And I'm like, I've got my man. I used to have a man cave. I don't have a man cave anymore. But I just want to make sure, I've got good equipment, you can imagine, because this microphone that I have, I see other people using, and I think, wow, I must be somebody in the microcosm, because in the macrocosm, I'm just little old shot.
For a while there, I was using just a webcam as a microphone. Then for a while, I had a Shure SM58 7 or 58, and now I've had to replace it with the cheapest piece of crap possible, but doing the best I can.
No, it sounds good. Ochelli.com. You're over there. You're creating this media platform. It's created, it's growing, it's expanding, and I applaud you, and I applaud your efforts on a daily basis through a lot of struggles and different things that that happen in life, and you're over there, and you're just putting you're getting people on there, you're having conversations, you're talking about real things, you're pointing out that Trump is Mr. Again, he's another one of those, oh yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And then you get in there and then like maybe 10% of what he says that he's going to do, he actually does. But then he's just emboldening and giving more money and power and weapons to the enemy, to the true enemy of humanity.
Well, that's even if he is, right? Because look, again, as per usual, these guys take credit for things that don't pertain to them, and also they're given credit for things that don't pertain to them, and they hide the real things that they actually do. And that's why this guy is absolutely no different than anybody else. He's a little more entertaining. He uses a little more vulgar language on occasion. He's not exactly trying to be very diplomatic about everything he says.
Yeah,
but other than that,
sure. He's not, and that's the thing that fucking kills me mostly, is that he's not presidential. What is presidential other than you are the salesman for children being murdered covertly, and the media doesn't, like Obama with his drone bombings killing children. It's been reported widely. Okay, and these front men. These bloodline frontmen are just that. They just stand there, and the people, the American people, shameful mass of people, sit there and believe that he's a disgrace to the office. It's amazing to me. The office is a disgrace. That's what I believe. And I mean, if JFK was the last good president, I mean, there's a lot of ways a lot of points that say yes, he was fighting for something, and they took him out, which was an example to anybody who thinks they're going to get in there and try to change the money changers and these evil corporations, which America is a corporation. London, England, all these countries are all corporations, and if you're not, you're going to be one soon. Like, Muammar Gaddafi knows, and hopefully it doesn't happen the same way to Syria.
Oh, yeah. What was the big problem with Muammar Gaddafi? Oh, that's right. He was trying to give interest-free loans to other African nations, kind of going outside of the banking system and sort of making an Africanized union based on what he was going to come out with regarding a gold-backed monetary device, huh? It's just coincidental that that's the time that is chosen for him to be absolutely deposed. When they present the propaganda that he was this madman, supporter of terrorism, all that. Pretty interesting. The people that lived there would tell you that their school was free, that they were living pretty well. They, had a lot of things that the Western media didn't report to you, like, a fairly decent electrical grid, a fairly decent, water purification system that didn't involve fluoride, stuff like that. I'm thinking.
yeah, and absolutely. And we see, and what are we hearing? We heard the same about Iraq, that they're sponsors of terror. Now we're hearing that this nuclear deal that, and it's weird to me because I look back and I think to myself, why did Obama do this? Why did the system do this? Did they do this just so that they could set this next portion up of the deception where the same usual suspects, Netanyahu and these guys and of course all the lobbying in America to say that they are, once this deal is done, this 10-year deal is done, they're going to be a threat to and of course they're a large sponsor of terrorism, when that's what we are. That's what we are. That's what America is. That's what Saudi Arabia is. That's what Israel's government is doing. It's amazing. It's whatever you hear is 180 degrees the opposite of what you think and what you're hearing.
Oh, yeah, but, the Iranian agenda has nothing to do with, during the time when you and I were growing up, Shali. If you took a look at what was happening, the Iranians were being demonized back then. I wonder why. Maybe it's a little bit of a pushback. It's the result of, I don't know, this guy that they called the Shah of Iran being installed over there. He was part of a royalty before there was democratically elected people over there, and this guy Mossadegh in the 1950s. Well, gee, they went over there. What was that? Operation Ajax. They went over there and, had a propaganda campaign against the guy, made sure he got removed, and installed the Shah of Iran until they finally got rid of him. Of course, during his reign of terror, he had the Savak, which was the secret police, that would just disappear people randomly. But this guy was, Western educated in quotes, right? So, big shocker and surprise. It's always been on the grand neocon agenda. And when I say neocon, I do mean the people that imagine that there must be a good crisis in order to continuously feed the beast of the military-industrial complex, which it is our brightest and most shining business across the world, because even though we're spending more than 1/3 of the planet's total military expenditure on the books anyway, as a nation, it's kind of funny that these people are still saying that we still need a stronger military. I guess it's the kind of thing that happens when you're in over 160 out of 190 nations on the planet as a presence, I guess. The perpetual warfare must continue to be fed. Why? Well, don't forget, we're also the greatest arms dealers on the planet. And it's funny because when you mention JFK, all right, JFK, not somebody to be deified as some do that have researched this topic, to say that he was, absolutely a perfect and great president, and wouldn't it be wonderful? This guy was not, without his dirty side too. But I got to tell you that I think he was legitimately the last one to actually have the people's interests in mind. It doesn't mean that he didn't do some crazy things. I mean, you got that whole UN proposal about removing guns from people. You've got things like Operation Shad, various other shadowy organizations that were created during his time in the intelligence community. A lot of things going on there, a lot of levels to it. But one thing he did not want to do was continue to feed the beast, continue to have us going into places like, if you've been watching Ken Burns crap, if you could stay awake, you'd hear that, well, Kennedy kind of started the Vietnam War and Johnson just sort of got stuck with it. No, that's not the way that went down. As a matter of fact, the months prior to his public execution, he issued a National Security Action Memorandum, which would have had all American personnel removed from Vietnam by the end of the calendar year 1965. Not 75, not like what we had, which was previous to Afghanistan, our longest military engagement in U.S. history. No, 1965, Shali. Yeah. Would that have changed the face of what actually happened? Would that have saved, I don't know, 1 million Vietnamese lives? Would that have saved, our 58,000 from having to come back in body bags and possibly up to 1 million coming back either psychologically or physically mutilated to this country? Probably. Would it have not fed?
Yeah. Well, the damage was done, but it would have taken the sting off it. I mean, I know that the Ken Burns thing has been going on. Do we still have you? Because it sounded like you.
Oh no, I'm still here. I'm still here.
This went out. I tuned it in and I'm watching. I'm like, what is it about this Ken Burns guy that makes all of his documentaries so? Oh my God, Ken Burns' documentaries are so amazing. He's such an amazing guy, and I'm sure that he is. Okay.
Well, let me cut you off right there because you know the answer already. Okay, and when I reveal it to you, Shali, you're going to go, oh.
Okay.
You ever take a look at who sponsors, who pays for Ken Burns to have that wonderful access to all that archival footage and all those still pieces and everything else?
I'm pretty sure it's the usual suspects.
Well, it's your friends at the Ford Foundation.
I'm getting good at this.
You're getting real good at this. It's the Ford Foundation. It's the usual suspects. And then also one of the Koch brothers.
One of them. Just one of them.
Just one of them. It's the I forget which brother it is off the top of my head, but it's I don't think it's Charles. I think it's the other one. So I always forget his name.
Regular or the new enhanced flavor or the original flavor.
Whatever. You know what? The guys who have enough money to actually buy and sell George Soros all day long, if you're paying attention. But, who's counting?
Well, the liberals focus on the Koch brothers like no other. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, I'm sure they're not doing things that are so, but it seems like they're steered in that direction by the left. They're steered in that direction. So they must be, they're definitely a focal point, but the right has its minions as well. So Ford Foundation, one of the Koch brothers.
Yeah, Ford Foundation, one of the Koch brothers. These various charitable organizations under these names you've never heard of. You got to research them real deeply, and you find out. There's the couple of Russian names that come up there. Like just interesting people that would fund this monstrosity. Which is just I don't know. I've gotten through 5 parts of it so far, and I've been breaking it down with Mike Swanson, who's the author of The War State. Mm-hmm. And it's just an absolute wreck. I mean, it's a train wreck of just messy garbage and misrepresentation. And Lyndon Johnson, like they literally portray Lyndon Johnson as being like, well, I don't know if I want to send these boys out there to go to war, because they show these telephone conversations with certain congressmen where he's trying to assuage them that, listen, I know your constituents are starting to get irritated in 1965 and 66. But look, I don't really want to do this, but, we can't let the communists run rampant all over us, and blah, blah, blah. And
communists that we created, right?
Yeah, only exactly the situation which we created. And, gee, we don't want the Chinese to come in and screw us up like they did in Korea. Yeah, no kidding. Wasn't that interesting? We're still dealing with that problem, aren't we? Oh, wait. Is that just a grand distraction? But
I think so. It's something that I knew that down the line they were going to. I think that their strategy is, and this is I'm going to sound naive, is thought out years in advance. It might have came out the way it is right now. It might have shifted, not maybe exactly how they wanted to, but it shifted, and they were the cause of it, and that's why today South Korea is like, one of the greatest, places over there as far as American influence, and then you've got North Korea, which is like a lot of people. Oh, they're in the dark ages. They're tyrannical. They're this. They're that.
Should be, though. You know why, Shali? Because in a technical sense, the Korean War was not brought to a conclusion. Normally, a treaty and an agreement is signed where nations, formally agree to cease hostilities based on said conditions. This is the way it's done, right? There is no technical end to the Korean conflict. In all honesty, there was an armistice. There was a cessation of hostilities, but not with the normal technical agreements that are, created between nations in order to end a war. So, honestly, the Korean War never ended in a technical, legal sense. Okay?
But Clinton said that the Civil War it never really ended in much the same way.
Well, yeah, I mean,
end hostilities, but
Well, but see, there's at least a document that says that the leadership signed something, which stated that there would be an agreement to how to conduct business afterwards and things like that. That didn't happen here. Look it up. It literally is technically in a state of not having ended. That's one thing. I heard you talking about the JFK thing, though.
Yeah, because we communicated this morning, and I'm going through my Skype on there, and then I'm saying, oh, there goes Chuck, and then I'm like, hey, do you want to join me this morning? Because I'm just like, there's some mornings where like, am I going to be able to do this? Can I get on here and do this? And I usually find my power, but at the same time, I look out to others such as yourself, and it had me bringing you on this morning had nothing to do with the JFK, the release of these so-called release of these documents, but it's just, it's karmically made that connection. So why do you think that right now that this is a thing?
Why is it a thing right now? I can explain that.
Okay. Hey, that's all. I'm so excited. Come on.
Okay. In the 1990s, my friends, ready for this one? Mm-hmm. Okay. The JFK Records Collection Act was signed into law, creating a government body under the executive branch in order to examine all records, public and private, related to the JFK assassination. It was created after the outcry, which followed the Oliver Stone film JFK, because of a slide that said it would take until the year 2029 to release all of the files of the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which was concluded in 1979. Okay, that particular act, and then the law, which was signed into law. Get ready for which president signed it into law. George H.W. Bush signed it into law. This meant that the CIA, all government agencies, okay, including the Pentagon, the NSA, who has to this date been absolutely uncooperative, was supposed to release any records that had any sort of direct bearing on the Kennedy assassination, with the exception of things that violated national security. The Assassination Records Review Board, headed by John Thunheim, was brought into existence by President Bill Clinton. Okay?
They all have to take their part in this bogus materialization of this information.
Well, what's interesting is that it's created a lot of fair side issues, but back to the evolution of why we're here in 2017. They released a ton of stuff, about 5 million documents in the late 90s, and then marked a bunch of other things for we can't release them at all because they violate sources and methods and things like this. And then they marked a bunch of other things to be released in 2017. They concluded their work before George W. Bush took office. So this, what you're seeing now being released, was planned, okay, little less than 20 years ago. This is not something that Trump is responsible for. This is not something that Trump is doing. This has been something that researchers have been waiting for. Okay.
Sure. That makes sense, knowing that sooner or later, and of course they have to control the entire, the landscape. It has to be meticulously done over time, so that it is so that it looks legitimate. Just like as I said, I've been saying over the last week. We have to make it look like there's checks and balances. That's one of the things that the politicians do and the system does, to make it look like there's checks and balances, just like what's going on with Mueller and all these other things. But an example of how checks and balances only are there for the commoners, you need look no further than Hillary Clinton walking freely today, and then also being able to run for president and then losing and then blaming it on Russia. And basically now they're getting ready to attack RT and RT News and things like that in America. So,
well, look, I have no doubt that Russian propagandists participated in an interesting psyop on the American people. I mean, Vladimir Putin has been sold to us now for, the past decade almost as a good guy. Let's be fair and let's be honest. This is somebody who's had the sense to hide his children and his wife from public view for a long time for fear of retribution, because he's what? An intelligence agent who rose to the upper echelon of control over his own government. I mean, hello, what do you think that is? Okay, but we'll put that aside for a second. War criminal Clinton, war criminal W. Bush, who made a fairly sensible statement this week. I thought I was having a stroke, but made a fairly sensible statement this week, despite the fact that I'm sure he was reading it and had nothing to do with writing it. He did pull it off, though. Got to give him that. All right. So back to this JFK thing. Let me knock a couple of things out of people's heads real fast. See, Alex Jones is running around and telling people, I have the inside intel. Okay. Because he's got Roger Stone now working for InfoWars. Okay. And Roger Stone says that first of all, Trump is going to release these things because he's going to give us the truth finally, and all this other crap. First of all, if Roger Stone is saying that, he has no idea what he's talking about, and Jones has no idea what he's talking about, based on what I just told you. But also, here's another fun part of that. Much as I would love to think that, hey, here comes the smoking gun. Not only is it not coming, but you may not even be able to read it anyway, because they started releasing these files in July of this year already. Okay, Jones is talking about how these files are going to be released. They started releasing them in July. You don't believe me? Go to the National Archives website. Matter of fact, I'll see if I can find a link for it. I've already gotten the zip files, but there's a ton of zip files that have already been released for people to look through. Those of us that know what we're looking at have already been through these files. I have not completed my view of them yet. But here's the thing, not just because my eyesight sucks, but I'm not the only one complaining that there are plenty of illegible, absolutely unreadable documents in there. There are still withheld in full documents, which were not supposed to be withheld in full. There are still missing pieces. In fact, missing pieces that were accounted for in the 1990s are now absent today. Why is that? They've been in government hands all this time, so guess who would have lost them or lost them on purpose? These things include a notebook which was found in Dallas, Texas, and was collected as evidence, and it was supposed to contain 10 pages, handwritten, which had a lot of interesting insights apparently into the assassination, which was deemed to be classified for more than 50 years, written before the assassination. And guess what? Out of the 10 pages that are supposed to exist, one exists. Next thing, Lee Harvey Oswald's personnel file. It has always been missing things. The CIA's version of it missed a whole lot of things that are in their standard personnel file. Well, now there's 3 sections of his regular overall files missing. There's parts of his military file missing, stuff that was in the hands of people that were working on the Assassination Records Review Board in the 1990s is suddenly, without explanation, absent. And it's going to take people like me and people like, guys that I have on my show all the time and stuff. I do Thursdays usually devoted to something, deep political assassination-wise. And the thing is, on Thursdays, we go through a lot of this stuff, the documentation. What does the official record say? And what doesn't it say? Guess what? There's still, whoops, we can't find stuff. Whoops, here's 3 million pages, but you figure it out. And remember, the review board was not even an investigative agency. They were just there to collect and release. That was their mandate. And the CIA fought them tooth and nail, obviously. As I said before, the NSA has presented virtually nothing regarding the Kennedy assassination, which, excuse me, but given what we've learned about the NSA over the past, few years, Shali, what would you say would be the agency? I mean, maybe the Office of Naval Intelligence, which has been somewhat cooperative, well, except when personnel files are sought out and then they fire the people that are in charge of being the liaison. Except for that. And this stuff, by the way, folks, I'm not telling you stories that I know from, from some documentary. I'm telling you stuff that I know from personal experience. They literally will fire the liaison that was actually doing the job of tracking down the Navy records that are being requested regarding one of these characters. But anyway, in compliance with the law, they turn around and discipline them in a military court. Article 32 hearing or 33, I forget which. Anyways, this is the kind of thing that's done. So those people that are thinking the big truth is coming, the smoking gun is coming out of these 2017 documents, no. I will tell you, though, some interesting side issues. A whole lot of cryptonyms were released, which will allow us to read and understand who it is the CIA is talking about in previous documentation, including stuff that goes all the way back to before the CIA's inception. And literally there's like 75 new code names which have been verified and are being now, triple verified by other researchers and things like that. I mean, stuff that links to the OSS in France, post and during World War II, people that were involved in communist operations, which were fake communist operations. Okay? Like, get ready. The name Gladio is going to come out of people like my mouth. It's not going to be in the documentation. But people that are linked to stuff like Gladio, which was a stay-behind organization, right. Terrorist organization conducted by NATO. Okay. Anyway, the Italian government has some interesting stuff to say about that, or has had at certain points until people get silenced. Fact is that some of the code names, some of the people that were actually directly involved in those operations are now going to be identifiable. if people dig through the JFK. See, it goes well beyond JFK because it's gonna reveal a whole lot of things, but it's going to take some work. They're not going to hand us the answers and say, look, here's who's responsible for this. Here's who's responsible for that. We certainly don't want you to know that Lee Harvey Oswald was an informant for the FBI, probably the CIA, possibly the ONI, and even, get ready for this one, the Customs Service for some odd reason. We don't want you to know that because he's the patsy that we needed, and we needed him to be a lone nut. And maybe he's the template by which they still operate today. So sources and methods need to be protected, Shali. What do you think of all of what I just said?
Well, I mean, it seems exactly what I would expect, you know. Just an overall, you know, like when they put out Obama's birth certificate, and I was at my cousin's funeral, and I ran into one of my oldest, like, first cousins, Eddie, and he was like, listen, he says, I don't have a dog in the fight regarding Obama or any of this stuff. He said, but I did download the birth certificate from whitehouse.gov or whatever. Right. And he was just like, this thing is a Frankendoc. And what he meant by that was it had layers, like Photoshop has all of these different layers that go on, you know, that you can place into and over certain things. And that's exactly what Obama's document was. His birth certificate was just a manipulated thing. So he said, that's not real. There's something to that. And then I think that kind of triggered him into, you know, certain directions and things like that. Of course, we got scalded by our liberal relatives who, you know, were, you know.
Well, you know, that's
Obama. We just love him. Why would you talk about this at a funeral? Why?
Well, yeah. Why exactly? I mean,
we were just talking amongst ourselves. Well, that's the thing. That's the sickness in America. It's just like, if you don't believe the official thing, then you need to be shamed publicly.
You know what's funny?
What I say to that is, go F yourself.
Oh, no, absolutely. Debate it all, look at it all, and I got to tell you that thing, as blind as I am, I could see that was just a ridiculous composite document. But
this is what you just explained is exactly what I imagine it would be. It's a distraction too, so it's going to be. They need a distraction because there's other, you know, there's a lot of different oars in the water that they over, you know. For, you know, the rest of this year, you know, the continued Russian attacks on Russian media and things like that. They need as many distractions as possible.
But just like a good WWE script, Shali, you need a bad guy. Now, who was the bad guy on the great Obama birth certificate distraction? Trump. You know, come on.
Yeah, and I mean, it's... yeah, I mean, you look at that, and anybody questioned it. It's just, to me, it's just like this whole thing. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They planned for him to be what they planned this whole thing, and they put him into power. I mean, I don't think that this was a mistake or an anomaly. I really don't.
No, not at all. Not at all. You know, my biggest question is this, though. I hear the word liberal being used a lot. I don't see a coherent liberal structure. I really don't. I see them as being a complete fabrication of all these sort of, you know, diverse, allegedly, you know, positive, multicultural, you know, completely let's be tolerant of everything and everyone sort of circumstance, unless you disagree with us. I see that general sort of theme coming together, but I don't see liberals. I don't see anything that looks like what I used to understand as a dictionary concept of liberal. They don't seem to exist, Shali.
You're right. And it's, you know, it's just a force of habit, you know.
It's just weird to me though.
So what is it? A party of mentally challenged people, and then of course then you get the conservatives or the right. I mean, their organizations are controlled so much at I mean, they're not what we're told that they are in any way, shape, or form.
All right.
The Democratic, I mean, Clinton's broken it down any number of times, what they are and how they operate, and they operate differently than we've ever been told that they do. And the main thing that collectively they are parasites, and they get their haircuts for free. They get their food for free. They get all these things for free, and yet they're getting paid. The minimum is what, like $170 or like somewhere between $150 and $170. It's like, who needs to cut your hair, pay for your haircut, and pay for your food when you're making that kind of money?
Well, and let's not forget, they're not paying for a lot of their transportation. They're not paying for,
And what's his face? The guy from Health and Human Services that just had to step down because he was targeted for, spending taxpayers' dollars. The government, the United States government, the controllers of our minds, are parasites. They're just absolute parasites, and they think that they're and I think that Maxine Waters, she actually thinks that she's providing some kind of service. She is batshit crazy. She's just batshit crazy. You never see any women, or you hardly see any women on the right behave like Pelosi or behave like Waters. They're just so fake. They're so fake, and she, again, any number of people have pointed this out. She doesn't even live in the district that she is assigned to, or that she's, run for, and obviously, cannot be voted out because they just keep on, and of course there's powers that are in there that keep her enslaved so that she can enslave her constituents, which are, largely minorities and black folks. And, it's just the perfect, or the near perfect structure of control. I mean,
and they're just the opposition right now, right? When it's time to swing the pendulum the other way, it'll go the other way, and then it'll look like somebody else is in power. It always does. It's fascinating to me because they all seem to lead to the same roads, I found it fascinating even recently, the Hurricane Harvey cleanup stuff, which, and before I forget, very cool that you played that track from Payday before I came on, by the way, because I just had him on Friday on the show, and I was talking to him about something like this, and you ever listen to the song Sharks he does?
I know that he sent me I think it was not too long ago, he sent me the follow-up to Missiles with Relish. And I listened to a number of those, and it kind of grew on me, but not so much Sharks, but my baptismal, if you will, was Missiles with Relish. And I listened to some of the songs, especially some of the songs that I played, a guitar on. Right. And it was like, after a while, it was like I was listening to the entire CD, just loving every song, saying to myself, this guy is so much better. And I don't want to compare him to a jackass like Jay-Z, but so much better. Last night I'm sitting here and I'm watching SNL, flipping through the channels, and there's Jay-Z standing there, and I'm like, and I look over and I say, was that just absolute noise? And she's like, yeah, that pretty much is just noise. And I'm like, Payday is, I make these comparisons, and then I go to the one of the phrases he says, if it wasn't for culture creation, you would never get played. And so, I praise him. That track sounded pretty good. I haven't listened to Sharks yet, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to go and I'm going to burn it to. I'm going to burn all that stuff to a CD and then listen to it.
No, that's cool. If you don't have a copy of it for some reason, let me know. I'll definitely get it over to you. But it's on the Murder by Number album that he put out, and we were talking about the multiple layers of what's happening there. Obviously currency and currents and water, and you're drowning in water because you're drowning in debt, which is all fabricated anyway, but it's still got a hold on you physically, and it's like drowning in an ocean. And then along come the sharks, and the sharks are the predators that are going to prey on you while you're trying to keep from drowning. That's the best part of it. The bankers, the predatory lenders, all these types of people that come around and do this. But also, the government will do the same. I found it fascinating with the Hurricane Harvey stuff because in Houston, you can go and you can apply for assistance, right? You can get a government grant for assistance from Hurricane Harvey. Now, Cynthia McKinney tweeted this out the other day, and I had to go look at it for myself because I couldn't believe it. You ready for this one? You're going to love it. Stipulation number 11. Now, obviously, when you sign on to get one of these grants, you make all sorts of agreements. I'm only going to spend the money on particular thing. I'm only going to spend it, with these particular types of companies or whatever. Et cetera, et cetera. And they might be designed for various reasons. Maybe they want to stimulate local business, so they'll tell you that you have to use local contractors, whatever, right, Shali?
Yeah.
Okay, so number 11 on the list was rather curious and kind of seemingly out of nowhere. You know what it was? You have to...
Yep,
go ahead.
No, I know that I was browsing over some of the stories, and I saw something about Harvey and Texas and people being either denied things or they're, like you said, being stipulations on the money.
You're gonna love this one. You are not allowed to be actively engaged in any boycott against the state of Israel. You're also not supposed to agree to it during the duration of said agreement. You're not to participate in any sort of
Any kind of anti what?
Israeli.
Right, yeah, you said that, and then your voice kind of any kind of anti-Israeli boycott, and then anti, and then your voice.
I'm sorry, no anti-Israeli boycott of any sort. You got to verify that you're not participating in one of those, and you also have to agree that you will not, during the duration of the agreement, participate in any sort of anti-Israeli boycott, protest, or other public pronouncement denouncing the state of Israel.
Wow.
If you don't believe me, go to the hurricane.
How many actual... I mean, these things are getting bigger than we even realize. Like, as I was speaking to you, I kind of kept the news station on, and there's a called what the heck of it? Christ, I can't think of it. But it's one of these shows, and the woman that hosted is Russian, and the woman that was on there was an ex, I think, Israeli, governmental person, and then they were showing statistics. They were talking about the two-state solution and how like 53% of Israelis want to stop doing what they're doing to, these racial settlements and the apartheid and all those other things. So that's going on. And I mean, I'm just wondering how, because they passed a bill just recently about that too. Did they not, about regarding any kind of Israeli boycotting or something? I know that they some kind of bill.
Listen, there's all kinds of political concerns here where you might say, we don't want to aggravate an ally. We don't want to have unjust things said about an ally or somebody that we're working with in a business level, people that we're creating terrorist groups with, things like that. We don't want to interrupt any of that or disturb that business. But let me ask you, Shali, what in the hell does Hurricane Harvey relieve? You have your home or your business destroyed. What does that have to do with Israel in Texas?
absolutely nothing, but it seems to be something that's worked into every deal. Be like, hold on a second, I'm going to sell you this. I'm going to sell you this computer, but first, before I do, have you ever been involved in any Israeli boycotts? Just like everything, is being, and I'm just wondering what level is this getting to that they have to do that, or are they just doing? I mean, does the world realize that there's something that's just not right over there? Like, well, I don't, I try to pay attention to those things. I understand what's happening largely over there, and it's not right. And we are funding this. We're funding some of the worst atrocities. But what I can't understand is that a group of people that were, abused in the 30s and the 40s, the way that the Jewish people were, why would they be doing this to these people today, to these people in Palestine today? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Two wrongs don't make a right. I don't know. And you're right. That should, number 11 on that stipulations list should not even be a thing. But it's a red flag. It's a red flag for anyone who is paying attention to the status of the world today, and the U.S. and the U.S. allies and things like that.
Well, it's sort of like saying, listen, I know that you've lost everything, and I'm going to feed you because I know you're hungry and your family's hungry. But before I do that, I want you to sign this agreement, and, I'm going to give you money to go get food, right? So I'll tell you what, you can go get all kinds of food, but it has to be nutritious. You can't go buy candy, okay, and you got to make sure that your children get to eat too, okay? You can only use it in local stores because I want you to stimulate your local economy, get that back on its feet, et cetera, et cetera. Don't go online with it. Okay. And finally, I don't want you to say anything about Canada because they are somebody that you should not be involved in protesting against. I mean, I'm just inserting another nation in another situation and asking you how much sense it makes.
Makes no sense whatsoever, and that's why. And most people in America would say, "Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I won't be doing that. I won't be boycotting anything."
Well, especially if you're trying to rebuild your home or something that's under 10 feet of water. Maybe you're not concerned at the moment with And how do you verify? By the way, that you're not involved in any Israeli boycott. They use the word verify. I might be paraphrasing the rest of it, but I'm telling you, I'm not far off. I don't have the document in front of me, but it's one of these things that it makes you scratch your head, doesn't it? There's always something else going on here. Oh, by the way, speaking of terrorist organizations, didn't we defeat ISIS this week, or did I miss a headline?
It's one of the most bizarre things that I've seen in a long time with what's going on in Syria, where, all of these terrorist groups that somehow our money and weapons have and the Al-Nusras and all of these. I mean, if there's more, let me know. I had the feeling that there's at least a couple more that they've thrown into the group just to confuse the average commoner, which it's not that hard to do. Just need a bright light or a football game. Mm-hmm. And so Russia comes in to support Assad, who a lot of people think that Assad is this butcher and this awful guy. Okay. They keep on pushing that, just like they keep on pushing that the Iran regime is working towards annihilating the state of Israel. They're the ones that are most concerned. But the thing that you don't see on Western media, you don't really see that on Western media. If you go to RT.com, they will tell you stories. I mean, this I think what is it, Oksana Boyko or something? Worlds Apart. I think it's called. Like, we're worlds apart in our view of this particular topic. But she brings this woman in, and Chuck, I'll send you the link for it, because all their shows are on YouTube, at least for now. At least for now, Chuck. Crosstalk. I don't know if you've ever seen Crosstalk, which is a really good show.
Well, I watch Lee Camp on occasion, because he's been a guest on the show and stuff, and for the most part, I agree with most of what he has to say. I find it interesting, and I even confronted him with this idea that, look, let's be blunt about this. RT is a Russian government-owned media. So obviously they have a spin too, but to deny that somebody has an agenda at any point in time is just absolutely ridiculous. You have an agenda, I have an agenda. Okay, we're going to selectively discuss things based on said agendas. Right. But RT is one of these things. RT America especially was meant to insert the Russian view into the American, voice. This is why they hired the Abby Martins, the Lee Camps, I can't think of Tom Hartman's.
Well, Hartman's gone from he's gone from that show. There's a new guy on.
Because Hartman bored you to death. That's why.
I know. I mean, any number of times I'm sitting there and I would watch it just to be like, just to look at the TV and be like, you are such a chode. You're such like, he would say any number of things, and his hosts, who are much more like knowledgeable than he is, they would say no. And then even the guy that was the lefty that was more on Tom's side, he said, no, Tom, that's actually correct what he said. And Tom was like, all right, well, that'll be the show for this evening. I'm glad he's gone, because I just can't. There's actually clips of him as speaking directly with Alex Jones. Should look them up there. And it's just like, when did this happen? I was just blown away. But he apparently was on the program, or Jones was on his program.
Well, it would make sense if
spin. I know that there is that spin. Yeah. What we're seeing here is we're seeing more information about what's going on in Palestine, right? You don't see any of that here, which is that would be taboo. That they don't want us to know what's going on in other parts of the world. They're like, we're the news, we tell you, and you just sit back and believe everything that we say, or you just don't even care, which is even better if you don't care about the news. But we're not going to tell you anything about what's going on over in Israel, because largely the ABC, NBC, CBS, all these CNN obviously been pointed out recently. I think his name is Andy something. Obviously the guy from CNN, Jewish guy, so they're kind of they're biased. So we're not going to hear anything negative about what's going on over there. But
you mean to tell me that Don Lemon and the CIA trained Anderson Cooper are not being honest with you, Shali? Come on now.
I'm devastated by their lack of clarity.
Vanderbilt Cooper, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. And so with this, I'm just blown away by. I mean, how are we not at war already? We have Russia coming in, circling back to that. Russia coming in to protect Assad. And any number of reports that I see, like Russia, like warning, stop bombing the Syrian troops, stop killing the Syrian troops. You're supposed to be fighting ISIS. Why are you not fighting ISIS, right? So it's like, okay.
They were getting confused because the CIA was backing one part of, the alleged ISIS, and the Pentagon was backing one part of the alleged ISIS, and they were clashing with each other, and, they had to break up the fight, Shali. I mean, that's you think I'm being sarcastic? I'm not.
No. And that's the thing about like, I will pay attention to a point, and my disclaimer is that these are my views. This is what I think is happening. I've not done a lot of research on it, but I know others who do. And one of those people is you, Chuck. I mean, you are lifting up every rock, every shell. You're doing that, and that's why I applaud your effort. Whereas me, I'm just Shal. I'm just the Shali Lama. So I'm just here trying to do this since the I want to say the fall into winter of 2011, trying to make sense of it all, being pulled into the InfoWars web of deception, and then largely being told by people, you got to stop listening to this guy. So it took a while for me to break away, and then I got to a point where it was just like I would listen just to see what was going on with what are the newest stories, and then I would understand, okay, well, Alex has a complete and total twist, and now you're seeing him kind of uncloak even more now, where he's going to back Trump no matter what Trump does, where as Rob Jacobson and Aaron Dykes and at least 2 or 3 others that worked at InfoWars have completely separated from, and of course there's like a legal binding saying that you can't badmouth, you can be sued if you reveal our secrets. If he reveals a secret, then they know it and they reveal it after fired or whatever. So it's been a long journey for me. I know that I'm not that great of a researcher. This is my sense. It was always my sense, even before I started doing this, that we've been lied to. The world is run a completely different way than we're being told. And that's just the kind of the platform that I kind of move for. But again, on top of that, I applaud, people like you and people like Doug Owen and a lot of these other people that I've crossed paths with. I mean, Jules does an incredible job at breaking down a lot of this technology. She's like super techie. It's totally one of her. One of her love affairs with technology. I mean, she runs this entire network, based off of that, techie stuff. She's like, I guess you could call her Mrs. Robot if any. So it's, there's just so many people out there that I look up to and say, wow, you're really taking it that extra, mile or two to do like the research that you do with JFK. Just like incredible. It takes so much to be able to, so much mental, just drive and the ability to do and gather and just gather all this information and then throw it up against the wall like you do, see what sticks, what makes sense. It's more likely that this is why this happened than that. So you've really, really done things in such a meticulous way, and I applaud that because that, honestly, that's just not even me. What I do is I just pick up the guitar and, I kind of do that, just to kind of fill in. So.
But you're a lot more entertaining than I am. And as far as Jules goes on the transhuman thing, man, I've been wanting to get her now as a guest on my show for the longest time to just break that down. Because when I first started doing this, I started on UCY, and a couple of conversations with Jules before I went to air, talking about what it is that we wanted to accomplish. First she wanted to know from me, what is it you want to accomplish with your show, and I started telling her, and then she started telling me about what it is that she does and why. And, I can't begin to unpack the stuff that she does. My focus is elsewhere, and we all have our areas. By the way, real quick, that whole Alex Jones with Tom Hartman thing, that was probably over Tom Hartman co-authoring a really bad JFK book with a guy named Lamar Waldron, which he did 2 of them, which were awful. Jones probably interviewed him because Jones loves to push the bad information. So, that would make sense to me.
Makes total sense, yeah.
And that was the funny thing is that last night, okay, I couldn't sleep for a while, and somebody posted in my Facebook group, oh, here's Alex Jones saying that the truth is about to come out about the JFK stuff and why, and obviously it's all Trump's credit, et cetera. And I just explained to you all that earlier. But anyway, Jones does. Oh, I've come into the studio now here on a Saturday night. I'm going to do a special broadcast tomorrow, breaking this all down and what. And I said, you know what? First of all, I kind of typed out part of what I just said to you earlier. Yeah. And then I said, now I would like anybody else who is knowledgeable on JFK to point out the 8 other absolute falsehoods that Jones just imparted in his stupid Facebook video to promote InfoWars. Because that's all this is promotion on top of promotion. Let me sell you my male enhancement. Let me sell you whatever it is that I'm trying to panic you about. And he's a salesman too. So it makes perfect sense that he's screaming, the globalists have been defeated, when Trump was selected to his post.
Right. And here's the thing. After all these years and all the loyal listeners, there has to be a victory here and there. So he points this out, and then what he'll do is he'll overemphasize even like the smallest little thing. So it's just like, oh, Trump's going to defeat the New World Order. It's just so ridiculous. He's not. He is a part of the disease. He will be used to push the old world order's bloodline lust for total dominance over the human species. I mean, that's all this is. And Jones again is just a symptom of this disease.
Oh, right. We only have our little $10 million studio here. Whatever. Well, we're competing with the big ones. Yeah. All right. Fine. But you know what? Keep in mind that Trump is also the guy who put Jeff Sessions into place, who is already amping back up the drug war, which, hey, that did us a lot of good, has been doing us a lot of good. It was declared before Nixon, really, but Nixon put it out there in the public eye, and, gee, we've been winning that war, haven't we? Just like the war on terror. So, those that thought, oh, look, cannabis is going to be legal under Trump, good luck. Yeah, in certain states maybe, but according to the Justice Department, it's going to get worse. Yeah. The other thing is, now I've got to tell you that this is not going to be popular, what I'm about to say, but the overemphasis on Black Lives Matter and the idea that, that Antifa is a terrorist organization. First of all, it's not organized, so you can't call it an organization. This ridiculous phantom that has been built up that way, I love it because what's already being put into play. Certain memos have already leaked, and it looks to me like we're going to get COINTELPRO 2.0. The justification will be because of the Black Identity movement. Okay, this will be the big, but it's not just about them. It'll be very much like what they did to the Black Panthers, which was absolutely wrong to do. J. Edgar Hoover did that, and there's buildings named after him now, and swell guy he was. But the black what is it? The Black Identity? I think it's BIE is the abbreviation. But either way, the very same discussions were going on in the Justice Department in the early 1960s regarding civil rights leaders, Dr. Martin Luther King. Now we have a day and we have coins with him on it and everything else. But, there was a time when the idea of peaceful resistance and protest was seen as a terrorist act. And, as soon as he started speaking about the moral cancer that was upon the entire nation because of our conduct in places like Vietnam, well, suddenly another lone nut shoots the man in the head. That's the way that goes for Dr. King. But anyway, back to it. All of those programs, the tracking, the wiretapping, the surveillance, the justification for it is about to be amped up even more. So you tell me where the police state is being, pushed back, where people's personal freedoms are being supported. Hey, Hey, have there been less drone strikes, by the way, or is that sort of a continuing program? Last I checked, that's still happening. And by the way, lots of silent, dirty wars all over the place. Not only the Yemeni war, which nobody is even discussing, okay, but, hey, there was a couple of soldiers killed in Niger. This is the introduction to, get ready, we are actually engaged in active fighting on the African continent. And not anyone in alternative or mainstream media is reporting on it. Why? Because we have no access. I don't, I'm not going to explain the mainstream, but.
What is that? Eastern Africa, like northeastern Africa? They've been doing. There's been things that have happened there. I forget what section of Africa, but I know I had that the Simon Rush on from South Africa. Basically saying that they're a step or two away from a genocide, a white genocide there, down in South Africa.
Oh, so, yeah, lots of genocides going on.
Yeah.
There's
they have a guy there. They showed a number. If you go to the website, Sightlanders is their, and they're actually trying. He's in America and he's trying to gather up awareness for this coming event that a Genocide Watch in DC has said you're like 1.5 steps away from this happening, and they have a guy named Mamela there who they fill out a stadium there. And it's just filled with black South Africaners that are just look like they're ready to. They just look like they're ready to start killing, man.
Well, there's that. There's also like one sect of Arabs killing another sect of Arabs in 3 different nations right now. We have various sectarian violence where there is black on black genocide, like tribal genocides going on in Africa in a couple of different areas. But who cares? Does anybody even give a crap? The body counts grow.
We don't. He wants to know, as long as we have everything that we need here. And believe me, I hope that really never goes away. I don't want to see America become, like a Gaza or like what the instability of the Middle East, the instability of Africa, which has been largely manipulated and triggered by just this social engineering. I mean, look at the Rwandan massacre. That was 2 groups that had a history, one dominating the other, and then it turned into. I mean, they had documentaries on RT about it, and I tout that highly because some of these documentaries are just absolutely groundbreaking. You never will see them. You will never see these documentaries on American TV, like the guy who builds tiny houses for the homeless, like the 57,000 homeless in Los Angeles. Documentary about the meat lobby, how there is the sodium nitrate and the preservatives that they're putting in the meat is devastating people and it's causing disease. I mean, nothing about. There's no documentaries about South Africa yet, but they do documentaries about places around the world, and then you look at it and you say, I wonder who the hidden hand. I'll say the hidden hand is in there. They're stealing resources. They're turning people against one another. These so-called leaders, and of course the what's his name, the guy who Mandela and his wife, they were touted as being some of the greatest people, or Mandela, and it turns out that he wasn't. Right, 180 degrees. So. We have, we definitely have a huge problem now. Getting back to that Black Lives Matters, okay? You have a something that happens, right? White cop kills black. Okay, so Nobody ever wants to talk about the black on black genocide in Chicago. Rahm Emanuel's completely happy with them just killing each other off, right? So the police are being completely. I mean, there was a 60 Minutes piece where the chief of police was like, "Are you guys standing down? Do you not have?" And it turns out that these gangs and this violence is overpowering even them. That's the next step that we're getting to. But there's a legitimacy, a certain percentage of legitimacy to the Black Lives Matter. But then it gets co-opted in some way. Somebody does some kind of violence. Somebody does some kind of something, right? And then they become something else.
Well, everything does. Look, and you bring up police violence.
Like the Tea Party.
Well, right. But you bring up police violence. Let's face facts again, right? We're already over 500 people that have been killed in police interactions in 2017 that were unarmed.
Yeah.
That we're not, not just the Castillo thing where the guy, is a legal gun owner and he's trying to explain he's got a gun on him, and I saw nobody from the NRA say anything about that. But anyway, because they're another co-opted organization out there to do nothing but what? Push gun sales, which they've done quite well. I
think that ultimately it's just covering up, because if you blame the police, then you seem like you're like what are you biting the hand that feeds you or biting the hand that protects you, right? When they're here for a completely different reason than protecting us. They're protecting their freedom franchise.
Yeah, I'm sorry, they're policy enforcers, man.
Policy enforcers, exactly. They're not peacekeepers. To large scale, they're policy enforcers, man-made laws, anti-God, the whole thing when it comes to laws, natural law, and then policy. So when we talk about wars, like you're talking about Sessions, right?
Right.
Where there was this classic Sessions video of him questioning some of the military, saying, "Are you going to come to Congress to declare war on another country, or is the UN going to be, are you going to get your orders from the UN?" I don't know if you remember that one. That was probably like 5, 6, 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, this Sessions guy, that seems legitimate. He's fighting for, keep the ability to declare war in Congress. Which, what does that even mean? They've got a approval rating lower than snake's nuts. And so, so he comes in. He's going after this MS-13. I think Tucker Carlson was traveling with him down in South America, trying to figure out what's going on there. Right? The war on drugs continues. The war on cancer continues. The war on terror continues. And what is it? Large scale? It's a war on us. The war on drugs is a war on the American people and obviously the people of Mexico.
Brought to you, by the way, by both sides of the paradigm. The excessive incarceration rate under Clinton is something that is astounding. All that stuff that was put into place. Sure. The cannabis crimes. So many people sitting in prison for cannabis is ridiculous. I mean, absolutely ludicrous. The fact that it's still a Schedule I drug is absolutely ridiculous. The idea that there are so many laws on the books in so many municipalities that I guarantee you, getting out of bed, you're going to break a law. I have come down on it this way, though. I at no point in time want to call the police for interaction in anything involving my life unless I am in the position of nearly being murdered. Outside of that, maybe then I won't even bother to call them, actually, quite honestly, because they might help. I don't need it, man. It's just come down to that. Right. And it's not, by the way, just black people being killed by cops either. Everybody is getting it one way or another. Yeah. 2016, the most disproportionate group from an ethnic standpoint were Native Americans. Were getting killed more than blacks, or percentage-wise anyway. I mean, the population doesn't outnumber anybody anymore. But the thing is that percentage-wise, if you want to break it down racially, what they call Native Americans, what we called Indians when we were kids, American Indians, whatever, The thing is, they were the ones that were actually getting executed by the police a lot more often than anybody else, disproportionately. Then followed by blacks, then followed by I don't know who else. I think Hispanics are actually lower on the totem pole than whites are. I haven't looked at the statistics lately, but this year, still hundreds of people. Do you see the outrage from any media outlet about this? Hundreds of people are being killed, through simple, traffic stops, domestic disputes. Domestic disputes you can sort of understand once in a while. There's a confusion. There's a violent live situation, these types of things. When you want to call in the adults to break things up, it happens. But, man, anyway, there's a lot of different ways to slice this issue. But Sessions, when you look at him, yeah, I get that there's some honorable things he said. Yeah. But watch what he does while he grins and bears it with this Trump on his neck.
Yeah, he's following the police state enhancement method. Hey, can you keep it going for just about 4 or 5 minutes? I gotta hit the head real fast.
Yeah, I'm good. The problem. Go ahead. The problem is that people don't want to understand that they just seem to want to embrace one side or the other of the very same corporation. It's the same people that are funding all of this. Your big pharmaceutical companies and your medical supply companies, well, that's the guy who, the HHS secretary, well, he was taking private jets. Trump is actually bankrupt the budget for the Secret Service already with his golf trips. Wait a minute, wasn't he the guy who was complaining about Obama taking golf trips? And okay, fine, whatever. None of these people have been legitimate for a very long time. I still state unequivocally that that the last legitimate president we had who had any sort of agenda that was in play that might have been for the people had his brains blown out on November 22nd, 1963. I got to tell you that, the last guy to challenge the CIA after him was, well, really two different people if I think about it carefully. But one of them was Richard Nixon, and instead of putting a bullet in his head, they got rid of him another way. The guy after that would be Jimmy Carter, oddly enough, because he turned around and didn't put an old dog CIA guy into the position of what? Being the head of the CIA, Admiral Stansfield Turner. And he got resistance and basically got nothing done, and that's why he was a one-term president who seemed to be an absolute failure, because he failed to understand his position on the whipping post, which is exactly what it is. This has been a puppet position for a long time. There are a lot of people that would contend it was always intended to be that way. I'm not so sure of that, but I will tell you that as you dig into any of these people that are supposedly these venerable and honorable leaders of any sort at any point in time, you find that not only are they connected to various bloodlines, but they usually had some sort of agenda in hand that had absolutely nothing to do with serving we the people. And here's a funny thing about that. It seems to me also logical to mention that at the very apex of the power structure in this country is supposed to be not the federal government, not the state government, not even your local government. The thing that should be of highest authority, from my understanding, the way this was all allegedly laid out, is supposed to be us, the people. You and me, the men and women who make up the alleged we the people. Now, is it a fiction? Is it a fiction, much like your birth certificate is? Is it a fiction written on a banknote that's actually just a forgery of something else? Probably. But even with all that in mind, I still say that there is a lot of work that can be done, and I still say there's a lot of possibilities here if we collectively understand that most of these people that they're supposed to be there representing us. They're supposed to be there reporting the news. They're supposed to be there keeping the peace. you got to remember that everything in this world is completely mislabeled, and in fact is generally, like Shali was saying earlier, 180 degrees different from the way it's described. Right, Shali?
Absolutely. I mean, it's opposite day. To coin Patrick Jordan, it's opposite day. Whatever you're being told, we go to school. Your children go to school every day, and they're being educated. No, they're being misinformed, disinformed, deformed. They're not being taught some of the most critical things that are required, to be able to move through this world and critically be able to think. We're being dumbed down, like Charlotte Thompson Iserby said in her book, in her The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. And that's really, truly where it begins, whether it be, the vaccinations that cause damage and disease. I truly believe that's why we have a lot of these, these children that are loaded with children with leukemia, some forms of cancer. I mean, these are small children, and they are in a fight for their life when they should be, playing in the sandbox, eating dirt, and hopefully drinking clean water, eating good food. Not the case. Our environments are being purposefully, just damaged so that in turn we become damaged. Right. And then their system, this is their system of government, the original conspiracy. If anybody's looking for a conspiracy, was the conspiracy to create the United States Corporation. And that's what we have. And we have constant wars because that's what they want. We have constant boogeymen because they get created, like bin Laden and all of these, and Hussein and Gaddafi, who may or may not have been involved in that, the airplane bombing. Wasn't that his claim to...
that was one of those things. Let me say something about that corporation comment you just made, though, real quick. Just want to throw this in. Go to any of the states where the original colonies existed. You'll find that if you dig deeply into their corporate papers, and I do mean to say corporate papers because they were literally corporate ventures. That's what each of the original 13 colonies were. Okay? So it goes way beyond even, our alleged Declaration of Independence, our alleged Constitution, all the way back to the colonies. This was meant to be a corporate venture. Go ahead.
Then you got your Abraham Lincoln, where the Lincoln Memorial that's sitting there, okay, because he apparently was like one of the greatest presidents ever. We hear about him constantly. 180 degrees from what we've been told. He was a white separatist. He did not really want black people to be in America. He thought that they belonged, in their area of the world. And ultimately, he said, if I could save the Union without freeing one slave, I would do it. But just like today, and as the Civil War, because of taxation, was moving forward, they had to use identity politics. And who were the identity politics of the day? Black people, slavery. Black people and slavery.
Well, that's true.
The things that I've done. Abraham Lincoln was a white separatist. He did not care about black people as much as he wanted to tax the fuck out of everybody. Plus, in addition to that, he wanted to serve his masters in the Union. And who were the masters in the Union? The same people that run everything today. The money makers, the people that were going to make him the most powerful, one of the most powerful people at that time. And of course, he was one of the most powerful people at that time. But again, 180 degrees, the opposite of what you've been told. And that's why we're deformed, misinformed, and disinformed today, because we believe this bullshit. We believe what these people have collectively wrote down in the curriculum for us to know about our world or their world. This is what we want them to know about our world.
Yeah, but Shali, what you're supposed to do is take a knee to or pledge allegiance to the war banner of the corporate states, which, by the way, is not a banner, not a flag of a country, but really is a war banner.
It's a war flag. Right.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. Yep.
And the state of emergency declared during the Civil War was never rescinded. So technically speaking, I think we're still under a partial state of martial law. I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading this. But don't believe me about the flag. Go look up the civil flag of the United States. Anyway, I leave it there with you, Shali, because I think we're just about done on time, aren't we?
Yeah, we got about a minute. I'll wrap it up here. And if you got to go, that's cool. I'll reach out to you. I'll message you after the show. Well,
absolutely, and I'm sure we'll be replaying this over on the stream at Ochelli.com. Anybody who's in the Texas area, I'll be at the JFK Lancer Conference on from the 17th to the 19th, I think it is, in November, if I can make it there in one piece. And there you go.
All right. Thanks, Chuck. Enjoy the rest of the day here.
Try to stop them. Don't put that on your wish list. That's retarded babble. Protesters make the hit list soon as they start to rabble. They are nothing but fishes in the barrel. It doesn't have to be Christmas for a carol. Some decorate with ornamental decorum. Some perform Shakana on Hanukkah and Purim. That's where my job come in. I am a blessing to the mercenary for the corporation selling weapons to them. Any potential competitor step into them. I'm authorized to knock them out and stick a GPS into them. They want to sell uranium to Iran that's enriched. That's a bitch. Now they got to